Welcome to Real Learning Center. Here I am standing next to a big tree here, and I am wondering how beautiful the whole scenery is. At the same time, I am also wondering how these stems are so big and so huge, and how they carry water to the leaves which are at the top of the tree. But do we see such strong stems all the time? Not always. We see that some stems are very soft, like our coriander. You can see that they are very soft. You can also see the money plant here, which is actually like a climber. You can see that their stems are so soft and so supple that you can very easily bend them. At the same time, you can also see this plant, which is kind of a woody shrub, and you can see that it is quite hard. At the same time, I have this huge tree bark, huge tree trunk that I see here, which is not easily bendable at all. What I need to do is, I need to cut this down to see what is there inside this stem. So we can not always say that the stems are hard and woody structures. They can be weak, fragile, or they can be strong and sturdy. If I take a tree and I am going to cut it, I am going to cut it horizontally, I am going to get a cross section of the tree. Now this cross section of the tree, if I am just taking and if I am observing, I see that there is some middle region here, which is the brown region, which we call as pith. Now just next to that, I see some small light wood color structure that is present, which is not very hard. But outside that, I see the dead tissue, which we call as bark. This outside dead tissue is something which actually protects the inside part of the stem, and this is very important for the stem. However, if I take a smaller stem like the coriander which we saw, or this only is somewhere in the center, you can see that the stem is made up of different layers. The outermost layer here is called as the epidermis. Epidermis means outer layer of the plant. Epi meaning outside, derma means skin. So there is this outer layer which is acting like the skin of the stem. Just inside that, we have a tissue called as cortex. Now this cortex is made up of cells which are slightly stronger. They help to kind of withstand high temperature, high pressure, water and wind. Now just inside this cortex, we have a fibrous cap, which is very important part of the stem. Now this is made up of another tissue which is called as sclerenchyma. You know what? Sclerenchyma is made up of cells which are all dead, and they have some very thick skeleton-like, fiber-like structures in them, which actually gives mechanical support to the plant. It's only because of this mechanical support of this sclerenchyma we can see such long-standing stems which can withstand heavy temperature and many other factors. Now this sclerenchyma is the one which gives support to the plant. Inner to sclerenchyma comes two important part of our stem. They are the phloem and the xylem. The phloem is the one which actually helps in the movement of food. Okay, the phloem helps in the movement of food. Generally the food is carried downwards, but in very few plants we also see the food is carried upwards. At the same time, we also see xylem, and xylem actually carries water upwards. This xylem and phloem is actually very interesting parts of the stem, because it is only because of these two parts, the xylem and the phloem, that the food can be transported, the water is also transported. So we will try to focus more about that part in a short while. The next one is about something called as the pith. The pith is the central region of the stem. Now this pith is just present there, giving mechanical support to the plant, giving structure to all the other parts of the stem. Now let us try to concentrate our study on the xylem and the phloem. Now to my right you can see xylem, and to my left you can see phloem. Phloem, as I was telling you, is the tissue which actually carries food. Food can be carried to the roots or to the leaves or any part of the plant. So phloem actually helps in the transport of food and water, and many times we see that the movement of the food in phloem can be bidirectional. However, it's not a must that it should move only in one direction or in two directions, depending on where the plant requires food. The food can be carried. However, we will talk more about phloem in our next video. In today's video, let us try to talk about xylem. Now, xylem is one tissue which is actually very important for the transport of water. Xylem not only transports water, it also helps in transport of minerals. As you can see here, there is one small pipe-like structure, but next to that you can see there are some small cells which are all having thick walls. Now these thick walls have lignin present in them. Now the lignin actually gives mechanical support to the xylem tissue. What we are interested is not in the lignin or in the cells that are present in the xylem. What we are interested in here is about the small tube that you can see. What is the diameter of this xylem there? It is 0.1 mm. That is, if I take 1 mm, it is 1/10 of 1 millimeter, and such small, very thin, narrow tubes are these xylem vessels. Now these xylem vessels, they kind of help in the movement of water. How do they help in the movement of water? They help in the movement of water because this plant would have roots and it would also have a crown like leaves there. Now the roots here are actually sucking the water from the soil, and it is transported through this small pipe which is very narrow, and that is going to the leaf. But what makes the water to move through this small pipe? Now there comes the answer, which is our sun. Sun is very smart because he kind of likes to drink water from the plants. So what he does is he kind of keeps sucking water from these small pipe-like structure, just like how we suck juice, from the straw. Sun also sucks water from the leaves that are there in the xylem vessel. So when he keeps on sucking water, we see that the water which is there in the soil is taken up by the roots, enters into the xylem, enters into the leaves, and again goes off into the atmosphere. So this way you see that the water keeps on moving from the soil to the plant, then it goes into the atmosphere, and this way the cycle keeps on continuing. Now you might be wondering why the size of the xylem tubes and the roots are so small and how are they going to function. Now all that will be studied when we study more about different aspects of theories that was proposed to explain us about how the water keeps moving from the soil to the leaf, which we will do it in our later videos. But let us just now remember that it's only because of the stem structure and the presence of xylem that the water can reach almost to 100 meters high height and the plants can survive. They can rely on the water from the underground soil and they can survive. It's also because of this water that the minerals and many other nutrients will be passed on from the soil to the leaves, which are already, as we have seen, the sites of photosynthesis. So this way the plant is able to survive because of the support and the moral support, the mechanical support which is provided by our stem. So let us keep wondering what happens in the roots now. In our next video, let us try to explore the function of roots and how it is going to help the plant to survive. Thank you.